The Lost Temple of Forever. Indiana Jones had seen his fair share of treasure, traps, and danger. The thrill of discovery had always driven him, the chance to uncover lost civilizations, long-buried secrets, and artifacts thought to be myth. But beneath the adventurous bravado, Indy had always harbored one dream: to find an artifact so powerful, so extraordinary, that it could transcend the world of man and history itself. An artifact that could grant him the one thing time had stolen: immortality. The legends of the Temple of Forever had haunted Indiana for years. Every lead, every clue, seemed to evaporate the moment he got close. It was said to contain a relic not of gold or jewels, but of eternity itself, a forgotten power that would allow the one who wielded it to defy death. It was the ultimate prize. But even to a man as daring as Indiana Jones, the temple remained elusive, always on the fringes of myth. Until now. The letter had arrived unexpectedly, sealed with an ancient wax sigil that Indy didn't recognize. The sender remained anonymous, but the contents were unmistakable. A map, hand-drawn in painstaking detail, and a single line of text: "The Temple of Forever is real. Come if you dare." The location? Deep in the jungles of South America, far from any known ruin or temple Indy had ever encountered. But the draw was irresistible. The mystery, the danger, the chance to finally claim the ultimate discovery. Indiana didn't hesitate. Indy adjusted his fedora, the familiar sense of excitement and dread settling over him. This was it, the moment he had been chasing for years. He lit a torch and stepped inside. The air was thick, almost oppressive, as though the temple itself exhaled with every step he took. The walls were lined with strange symbols, unlike anything Indy had seen in all his years of archaeology. They weren't Egyptian, Incan, or Mayan. Nothing recognizable. They pulsed faintly, as though alive with a hidden energy. The deeper he went, the more uneasy he felt. His heart pounded in his chest, not with excitement, but with a gnawing sense of dread. The air grew colder, and the flicker of his torch seemed to wane, casting long, twisted shadows across the walls. Indy's breath became visible, hanging in the air like a ghostly fog. He pressed forward, his instincts telling him to turn back. But his curiosity, the insatiable hunger for discovery, drove him onward. The tunnel opened up into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center of the room stood a massive stone pedestal, and upon it, glowing faintly in the dim light, was the relic. It wasn't what Indy expected. It wasn't gold or jewel encrusted. It was a simple stone disc, carved with more of the strange symbols, and at its center was an inscription that made his heart stop. Time is a circle. There is no escape. Indiana swallowed, his throat dry. The room was silent, too silent. No birds, no insects, not even the sound of the jungle outside. He stepped closer to the pedestal, his hand reaching out almost instinctively. The disc seemed to call to him, its energy pulsing with the promise of eternity. This was it, the artifact that could defy time itself. His fingers brushed the surface of the disc, and the moment they did, the chamber came alive. The walls shuddered, the symbols glowing brighter, and the floor beneath him cracked. Indy staggered back, his heart racing as the air around him grew heavy, thick with an unnatural force. The disc floated into the air, spinning slowly, its light intensifying until it was blinding. And then, the voices started. At first, they were a low murmur, like the hum of wind through a canyon. But as the disc spun faster, the voices grew louder, insistent, angry. They weren't human. They were ancient, filled with the weight of centuries, and they spoke in a language Indy couldn't understand. But the meaning was clear. You have come too far, Indiana Jones. There is no turning back. The room seemed to warp, the stone walls bending and twisting as if reality itself was being torn apart. Indy backed away, but there was nowhere to run. The entrance was gone, swallowed by the darkness that now bled from the edges of the room. The disc pulsed with energy, and the voices became a deafening roar. Indy's vision blurred. His head spun as the symbols on the walls began to move. Shifting, changing. They weren't just symbols anymore. They were eyes. Watching, judging. He could feel them boring into him, weighing his soul, his life, his every action. And then, from the center of the disc, a figure emerged. It was tall, impossibly tall, cloaked in shadow, its form indistinct but powerful. Its eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with an unnatural light, and when it spoke, its voice was a low rumble that shook the very ground beneath Indy's feet. You seek eternity, but eternity is a curse. Time cannot be escaped. Indy tried to move, to run, but his feet were rooted to the ground. The figure stepped closer, its presence suffocating, as though it drew the very air from the room. Indy's mind raced. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. The figure raised its hand, and the disc stopped spinning, hovering in midair between them. You have trespassed where no mortal should tread, the figure said, its voice cold and final. And now, you will join those who sought the same before you. With a sudden, violent force, the disc shot toward Indy, striking him squarely in the chest. Pain exploded through him, more intense than anything he had ever felt. His vision went white, and for a moment, he was weightless, suspended in nothingness. Then, just as suddenly, he was back in the chamber. But something was wrong. The walls, the pedestal, the disc. It was all the same, yet different. The room was frozen in time, trapped in a moment that would never end. Indy looked down at his hands, and horror gripped him. He hadn't aged, but everything else had. The temple had decayed around him, centuries of time passing in an instant, while he remained untouched, eternal. The figure's voice echoed in his mind. You sought immortality, and now you have it. Forever, Indiana Jones had found what he was looking for. And now, trapped in the ruins of the Temple of Forever, he would exist for eternity. Alone, forgotten, lost.